So let's talk about how to make ghusl. What are the steps of ghusl? So we covered different types of ghusls. We talked about the two types of ghusl, the ritual ghusl and the regular ghusl. And this uh, today we are going to talk about the ritual ghusl, the ghusl that takes you out from major impurity and you reach the level of tahara, or the state of purity. And the other ghusl, which is the regular ghusl or the daily shower, so there are no real steps to it. You can do whatever you want, but since ritual ghusl is part of worship, you need that to worship. You have to come into the state of purity. There are some steps that must be followed. There is minimum. There is something called recommended ghusl, a ghusl that adheres to the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a ghusl which is bare minimum. If you have to do that, anything less than that, it's not counted as ghusl. So this kind of ghusl, again, it's in a state of major impurity. If somebody is in a state of junub, or a sister is coming out of her menses or nifas, then this is the type of ghusl that you do. So the first thing that is required in this type of ghusl is the intention itself, and this is something which is obligatory. You need to have this intention in order for your ghusl to be valid. So if somebody, for example, they go into the swimming pool and they swim, and if they were in a state of junub, and then they do the swimming and then come out and they tell themselves that, hey, I was in a state of junub, now I went into the swimming pool and I'm all wet, then I have reached the state of purity. This is not going to be valid because this person did not have intention of making a ghusl, so his ghusl is not going to be valid. If he had ghusl intention and then he jumped into the swimming pool and then he came out, then yes, his ghusl is going to be valid. So let me tell you beforehand that if you can make your entire body from head to bottom everything wet, then you have ghusl. You can come out of state of major impurity and go into the state of purity. Okay. Now, the second step of ghusl. Now, all these steps basically they mainly come from a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was making ghusl, and this was narrated by our mother, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Maymuna radiyallahu anha, that she said in this hadith that she brought some water for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to do ghusl, and she screened him with a cloth, and then she said that she described the ghusl of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the first thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did was he poured water over his hands and he washed them. So washing of the hands is the second step, and this step is a sunnah. This is the order that we do. Of course, we have to wash hands. Every part of your body needs to get wet. But this, if somebody does not wash hand, the very first thing, if somebody washes head, for example, this is still okay, but the sunnah, more rewarding, is to wash the hands. Now, we wash hands first because we are going to be using hands to clean the rest of the body, so we want to make sure first the hands itself is clean from any impurity or any other thing. So that should be clean first. Now, the third step is the washing of private parts. Now, this step is also sunnah. Yeah, it's true that even private parts, everything needs to get wet and cleaned, but we're talking about the order. The order is a sunnah. The third step is to wash our private parts. And in this step, it is very important that you use left hand only. And it's mentioned in the hadith that Rasulullah ﷺ would pour water over his left hand with his right, and he washed his private part with the left hand. Okay, so this is the sunnah thing, to wash our private parts, and you clean the area, everything, and the places of najas and so on. Now, it's important that the entire private part be wet, which we'll cover later on, which is obligatory, but the order itself, as we said, this is a sunnah. And the other thing is that you have to wash your hands after you clean your private parts. It's again sunnah, of course, but Rasulullah ﷺ used to strike his left hand on the floor and then wipe it. And this was his practice, basically cleaning it. And we can use soap, for instance, to accomplish the same. So this was his practice. Now, step number 4 is to make wudu, make a complete wudu. And this is also a sunnah step. So you can do wudu anytime during the ghusl, and but the sunnah step is to do it after washing your private parts. And as I mentioned in the previous halaqas, that if you just do ghusl, you are automatically in a state of purification. You don't have to explicitly do wudu. So if somebody just jumps into the swimming pool with the intention of ghusl and then he comes out with everything wet, his body is entirely wet, then he doesn't even need to make wudu. He can just pray just like that, and his salah is going to be valid, because the general rule here is that if somebody makes ghusl, he automatically raises to the state of purity even without making wudu. Now this is the main difference between ghusl of janaba and the regular ghusl. If you're just taking regular ghusl like the daily shower in the morning, and you make every part of your body wet and then you come out but you did not make wudu, then you do not have wudu. That automatic wudu is only applicable to ghusl of janaba, not the regular ghusl. So this is the main difference that you must know. You have to compulsorily do wudu for regular ghusl, but for ghusl of janaba you do not need to make wudu, but sunnah and more rewarding is you make wudu after you wash your private parts. And Rasulullah ﷺ used to make wudu, but he would delay his washing of the feet until the end of wudu, until the end of ghusl. Obvious reason being that, after you I mean, in the next step you will be cleaning your entire body, and there will be najas get cleaned through the water, and the water might again fall on the feet, so you might have to wash your feet again. So why don't you just clean or wash your feet at the end of ghusl, so you can delay washing of the feet till the end. Now the other step, so step number 5 is to wash the hair, and step number 6 is to wash the body, and these require some additional explanation, and there are a lot of details that we need to be aware of. But the step number 5 and 6, washing of the hair and washing of the body, these are obligatory parts of ghusl. You have to do it regardless. So if you do not get your hair and body washed and cleaned completely, then you do not have ghusl. So this is the main thing. So let's talk about washing of the hair itself. Now you start from the top and then go towards the bottom. So because the impurities or the najas or anything will go from top to bottom while making ghusl. So you start from the top, and this is, as we said, is obligatory, but you should know that every part of your head should get wet. Okay, so which means the scalp and the roots of the hair, everything must be wet. The hair must be wet itself. Now the sunnah thing in this step is that you pour water over your head 3 times. Okay, so if you have like a bucket of water and you take a mug and you pour 3 times water, so this will suffice. This is a sunnah. This is what the practice of Rasulullah ﷺ. But if you're talking about just minimum ghusl, if you can make sure that you have completely made your hair and head wet, then it is good enough. And wiping is not acceptable at all. It's wudu, yeah, we wipe, we don't wash, we are not allowed to wash, but in ghusl, we are not allowed to just wipe. It's not acceptable. You have to make everything wet. And rubbing is not compulsory, but Rasulullah sallallahu he used to rub his hair to the extent that he was sure that the water has reached the skin. But if you're standing below the shower and water is coming continuously and you can make sure that it's getting wet completely, then inshallah that should be sufficient. And as far as head coverings are concerned, like turban or hijab, then obviously you have to remove it. You do not have that concession like wudu that you can just wipe over it. So this head covering must be removed. And any other thing like the henna, if it's like in a solid state, that must be removed completely. And sometimes people have this cream, a heavy cream, and this cream can prevent the water from reaching the hair or the scalp. Then this must be removed first before washing the hair. And of course things like wigs and stuff, these have to be removed as well, and you cannot take shower on top of it. And the interesting thing here is that the only exception and concession that we find for washing of the hair during ghusl is the case of the hair when it's braided. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, this hadith, when a woman who was a tightly braided, she came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she asked that, I'm a woman with tightly braided hair, should I undo it for ghusl from janaba? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, no, it is sufficient for you to pour 3 handfuls of water over your head, and then pour water over you and you will become pure. So that is sufficient. So this concession that they do not have to undo their hair, so and they can put water over it. So this is specifically for these people who have braided hair, women in particular. So they do not have to undo it. Same thing applies for hair buns and things like that. They just have to throw water over it, and inshallah they will be pure. Now, next, the last step is the washing of the body, the main thing. This is again an obligatory step. If you do not wash the body, then your ghusl is not valid. But important thing here is that no place in your body can be dry. Everything needs to be wet. And this includes like semi-enclosed areas like nose, mouth, armpits, navel, and the anus. People, sometimes they don't pay to this little attention, but if any part is not wet, then it's a problem. They will remain in the state of impurity. Now, we mentioned earlier that we wash our private parts in step number 3 or step number 4. So that particular step, we already wash our private parts. Now, do we need to wash our private parts again? The answer is no. If you wash it already, you don't have to wash again because it was already completely wet. Okay. The sunnah step, the sunnah thing in this step is that you first wash the right side of your body and then you wash the left side of the body. This was the practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Instead of going top to bottom, you go right and then you do left. So that's one thing. And other thing that you should remember that this the nose and mouth are very important. Many people are negligent, they're careless. This must be washed. Water must reach there. And some people say that these are internal organs, we don't need to worry about them. But the correct opinion is that these must be washed because these are actually external organs. These are not internal organs. And this was the opinion of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, a strong opinion that if this was internal organ, then if you're fasting and if water goes in your mouth or nose, like when you're making wudu, then it will break your fast, because the rule is if water touches the internal organs, then you break your fast, like if it goes into the throat. So same logic here, that nose and mouth your water should reach there because it is external organ. Now, other thing is soap necessary? Is it essential? Then answer is no, it's not compulsory. You can use them. If you can just make your body wet, that's sufficient. Now, touching the private parts. Now, we mentioned earlier when we were covering the wudu breakers that touching your private parts break wudu. If someone touches the private parts with their left hand again for cleaning, then they will have to repeat the wudu again. So the better thing is that you first clean your private parts, then you make wudu as in steps 3 and 4, and then you wash the body without touching your private parts. Then you don't have to worry about this. But if somebody does wash his private parts again with soap, for example, then the safer opinion is that he has to make wudu again. Same thing applies to anything which generally breaks wudu, like somebody urinates or wind comes out of their body, then they have to make wudu again. And the last thing that the rubbing of the body, this is something which is not compulsory, it's not required. If you can get your body wet, that's sufficient. Some said you should rub if you are not sure that it's wet or not, or if it's dry. If you have doubts, then you can rub it. And the last thing that you do in ghusl is to wash your feet. Now, as we said earlier, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would delay washing of the feet, and this is again mentioned in that same hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, that he used to move away from the spot where he had been standing and then wash his feet. That was his practice, and obviously he would do that because the place he was standing would be wet, or maybe there are impurities on the ground, so he would want to make sure that feet is clean, in clean area, and then he would wash his feet. When you're washing your feet, you have to make sure that you remove your hoof, your leather socks, your cotton socks, any kind of socks. You do not have any concession like wudu, like a traveler, he could wipe over his hoof or socks. And when it comes to ghusl, you do not have any option, you do not have any concession. You have to wash it completely, you have to make everything wet unless you have any medical excuse or so on. Now that concludes the ghusl steps. But let's discuss some issues that are related to ghusl. Some people have many questions related to it, and I would like to discuss those. The first thing is the amount of water that we need to use for ghusl. Now, the general rule here is that it is disliked to waste a lot of water. It's not good. And this hadith, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's mentioned in Abu Dawud, he said that there will be people from my nation who will transgress in making dua and purifying themselves. So since this is a part of purifying yourself, the ghusl, you have to make sure that you do not transgress, you do not overuse, you do not waste water. And if you look at the Sunnah, how much water Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to use, it's amazing that mentioned in so many ahadith, that like in Sahih al-Bukhari, that he used to make ghusl with just a sa'a of water. Sa'a of water, you can say it's like less than half a gallon, even less than a liter. A sa'a is basically 4 mud, and 1 mud is basically you just cup your hands together, and how much water comes into that hand, that is 1 mud. So you take 4 times like that. That's how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to make ghusl, with those 4 handfuls, cupped hands. And generally, all the different hadith, it's mentioned ranging from 3 to 5 mud. But for us, it's like a big deal. We can't do ghusl in that much water because we don't have practice. Once you start practicing, inshallah, it becomes easier. But if we can make even 1 gallon, it's a big deal. But the way people take shower, if you are just taking like 10 minutes of shower, if you have a shower running in your bathroom, then it takes people's heads takes like 30 gallons for a shower, just for 10 minutes. It's too much of water. And we're talking about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who used to take ghusl in less than half a gallon, for example. And if you're taking a bucket, that would be like 5 gallons, for example, right? So that's still a lot, but that's still much, much better than using 30 gallons or more when you're just let the water run from your shower head. And another thing is that people ask that, can I stand while taking ghusl, or do I need to sit down? So the scholar said that it's okay, it's permissible. If you want to stand, that's okay. Um, some scholars said that you should sit down, but it has to do with modesty and covering, and if it's not obligatory. And if you're taking it in a open place, of course, first of all, you shouldn't be showering in an open place. But in that case, you have to sit down and go far and sit down so that nobody can see you. And can we do tayammum instead of ghusl if you have excuse? Yeah, if you have excuse, like if someone maybe has a disease on the head and the doctor told them that they can't put water, shouldn't put water, then yes, they can exclude that part. Or maybe sometimes they are so sick that, or have high fever or anything like that, and the doctor said you cannot put water on your body, then that's also a valid case of exception or concession. In fact, there is a hadith, two hadith that I would like to mention, wherein this hadith is in Abu Dawood again, wherein some Sahaba were traveling, and there was this one person who had a wet dream, and he wanted to make ghusl, but he was injured. So he asked the people, his companions, what should I do? So they suggested that he should make ghusl. Yeah, it's going to be tough for him. He's injured. It's going to be tough for him. But that was his suggestion, and he did make ghusl in that injury. And what happened because of that? He died. It got infectious probably, and that because of that water going into that injured place, he died because of that. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to know about it, and he was very upset. And he basically said that they killed him, may Allah kill them. And he said, is it not inquiry the cure of ignorance? So they should have asked if they didn't know something. So he was upset with what the companions did. And that's why it is said that, if you're not qualified, do not give fatwas. You might end up causing very huge damage. So, and another hadith, it's mentioned in Abu Dawud, which is a Sahih hadith, a hadith of Amr ibn al-As, radiallahu anhu. This companion, he was in charge of a campaign, and he went with some Sahabi, and he had a wet dream, and that was a very cold night. And so he was scared to do ghusl, and he thought that he would die. So what he did, he just did tayammum, and then since he was the Amir, he led the prayer with tayammum. And so the people saw that, and they complained to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam about this, that he led us in salah and he was having this major impurity, the janaba. So Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talked to Amr ibn al-As. He said, oh Amr, you led your Sahaba in prayer when you were junub. So Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, he told the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that the reason why he did that, and he also said the verse from Quran that وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا, and do not kill yourselves, surely Allah is most merciful to you. So when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam heard this, he smiled, and he did not say anything. Basically, he was smiling because he saw this ability of ijtihad in his companion. So that was a valid excuse. If somebody, even though he's not injured, but he is so scared that he's so cold that he knows that if he gonna use this ice cold water, then he's going to get seriously sick or even die, then he has a valid excuse. Okay. Another thing is that can we be completely naked? So in this country, for example, many people, like after they come out of swimming pool, they take a shower, and many people here, they don't mind taking shower completely naked, and they say, hey, it's the same gender, there are no other gender people here, so it's okay to take completely naked, to shower completely naked. But in Islam, it is not permissible, whether you are men or women or only in men only areas or women only areas, you still cannot be completely naked. Even if there are people of Islamic faith, if they are Muslims, you still cannot be completely naked. You have to be far away from people, or you must be taking shower in a closed area. And do we need to cover ourselves if we are taking ghusl, like in a bathroom in a closed place? Then no, it's not necessary. It's permissible to be naked while taking bath, and it's also permissible to take a bath with your wife. So you can be completely naked, you and your wife, and still take ghusl like that. This is also permissible, and it's reported in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim both that Prophet ﷺ used to take bath with Aisha and Maymuna radiyallahu anha. So another reports, like we see in Sahih al-Bukhari, that the previous prophets like Musa alayhi salam and Ayyub alayhi salam, they used to bathe naked. And they used to go far and take a bath, and then they used to bathe naked. And that's the famous hadith when Musa alayhi salam removed his clothes and put it on a rock, and then the rock started moving. So that's again another instance. Other thing is that can we take ghusl discontinuously? Like if there is a gap when you're taking ghusl, maybe something happened, you ran out of water, or the water is not coming, so you go out and get more water, or you had got an urgent emergency call, so you had to discontinue your ghusl. So when you come back, do you need to start from beginning, or do you need to start from where you left? So the answer is you start from where you left. You don't have to repeat all over again. Okay, so this concludes the ghusl topic. Inshallah, we'll start with another topic later on. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us tawfiq to do proper ghusl and use minimum water and not waste a lot of water while making ghusl.